Hello, everyone. Thank you if you're joining live or if you're catching up on this later. My name is Ben from Apps Events, and we're just putting on this short live stream today to talk about the virtual summit that we're running. It's called the London Summit, which seems a bit irrelevant in these times, but it's called the London Summit because the American School in London is hosting. And when we originally planned to do this, it was going to be an in-person event, lots of really exciting sessions where you could get hands-on. And obviously we postponed and moved it back and changed and ended up virtual, just like everything in the whole wide world is. Well, maybe apart from a few countries that have managed things differently, but nonetheless, we have moved it virtual. So that's why it's called the London Summit. But if you are anywhere around the world, the only restriction is really around time zone as to whether you can join us. And to inspire you to join us, we are going to hear from the session leaders, the amazing trainers, educators that are going to be delivering sessions on the 6th and the 7th of March. So that's what we're here to do, is just to give you a brief introduction to those speakers and their sessions and give you the opportunity to have a look at whether you want to sign up and join us. And the link, you can see it very, very small at the moment, but you can see it slightly bigger now. If you want to head along and join us, then it's appsevents.com/online/London 2021. And I'll put that in the comments, and you can obviously grab that on appsevents.com as well. So yeah, that's the aim. So in a couple of moments, I'll be introducing our speakers and let you hear from them about the sessions that we're running. So the 6th and 7th is the date for it. It's going to be 9 till 3. And we like to sort of vary up the different ways in which you can sign up. So if there is more than one link for something, that makes it better, right? So let me just put that in for you. That's the link there that's just gone into the comments that will allow you to join us on the day. So really excited to be able to do this. Our speakers, I genuinely, I mean, when you start off with "I'm genuinely," it makes you seem slightly less sincere, but I really, really am excited about the lineup that we've got. So we have got Lisa, Katy, Kim, John, Lawrence, Susan, and myself delivering sessions. And I'll let them all introduce themselves a little bit more, but that gives us representation from the US, particularly we've got Illinois, California, Virginia represented. Kim is based in Germany. John and Lawrence are based in the UK. And also a range of K through 2 sessions, middle school, high school sessions, and lots of different topics as well. So it should give people lots and lots of choice for some sessions that can support you in the short term if you are in the middle of distance and hybrid learning, or support you in the longer term as you look to sort of really embed digital tools. Maybe you've suddenly become a more avid user of digital tools over the last few months, like many educators have, or you're just, like you always were, looking to sort of find new ways to engage the learners that you work with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in Lisa Berkoff. Hey, Lisa. I like the way you did there. You decided to be on mute when you came in. Just to go with
the day is not complete until you have told someone that they are on mute. So I just wanted to get that out of the way so you can check the box. It has now been a complete day. Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got a busy day going on either side of this. So really appreciate you sharing today about the sessions that you are going to be delivering on the 6th and the 7th of March. Hopefully, I think we've got you in the afternoon UK time, so it's not too hard. But yeah, if I pass over to you, so do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and your background, and then we'll get into the sessions in a second.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. I am based right outside of Chicago in Illinois. I'm about 20 miles north of the city of Chicago. We got a huge snowstorm the other day, and I love it because I bought snowshoes and was finally able to take those out for a spin. I work at a high school. I'm the director of instructional technology, but I have been a special education teacher for, this is my 25th year in education, and the first 19 of those years, I was completely full-time special education working with students with disabilities. Now, in this role as Director of Instructional Technology, I still teach one class. The rest of my day is spent working with teachers in and out of classes, co-teaching, helping to plan, providing professional development. And it's really all through the lens of how do we reach our students who are struggling. And so I really love being able to share some of the kind of tips and tricks, some of the digital tools maybe that we already know about, that we've already been using, but maybe thinking about using them in a little bit of a different way to help reach those kids who may be struggling, whether they actually have a diagnosed disability or not. We all know that we have kids in our classes who are struggling to learn. And so I just love the idea of kind of thinking outside of the box and being able to look at things in a little bit of a different way to help reach those kids.
Well, I think that kind of design for the extremes is something that has over time always proven to be a very effective way to design for everyone. So with universal design for learning, I know that you put that at the heart of pretty much everything you do as well, don't you?
I do. So it's all about removing barriers as opposed to looking at deficits. So you think about what barriers can we remove and what things can we put in place to really help kids, meet them where they're at and help them progress in their learning.
I think that's great. And this is exactly why I wanted to do this session as well, is that, you've got a Schoology session and you've got a couple of other sessions as well. But I think it also helps people understand kind of where your heart is when it comes to education as well, and kind of connect with that. So in terms of the sessions, if I bring those back up for a moment, you've got, I believe, 3 sessions that we're going to be seeing you for across the 2 days. So if we start with Schoology, I just want to give us a little bit of background about Schoology and the session you're looking to deliver on the 6th of March.
Sure. So full disclosure, I do not work for Schoology. I use Schoology as a teacher, just like all of you. And I do a lot of training at my school on Schoology and just figuring out the ins and outs. So I think especially over this past year, we've really given Schoology a run for its money. We've given it a really tough road test. And there are so many kind of hidden gems that are like in the nooks and crannies of Schoology that I think we often overlook. And when I show teachers, when I point out these extra little things, they're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a game changer, blows my mind. Just so there are some things that I think we tend to overlook, or, we just get into a routine of, okay, I'm going to add materials and add an assignment and call it done. But there are so many amazing features built into Schoology that can really make a difference for your students, and even more importantly, can really make a difference for you. I think, especially when we're talking about learning in a remote or a hybrid setting, we're looking for efficiency because we want to be able to work in a way that is smarter and more efficient and not so much time all the time and so much effort all the time. And I think that is really a big piece of what this session is going to be. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to go beyond the basics, not necessarily advanced or complicated, but pointing out some things that maybe you haven't tried before, or maybe you've seen it, but you weren't really sure how it worked, and really help kind of mix things up a little bit for you and your students. So I know after using it for a while, we tend to kind of get into a routine, which is great. And then it's nice to kind of mix things up and use it in a little bit of a different way. So we're going to be, doing some things together, interacting, and it should be a good time.
Awesome, tremendous. So American School of London, who are kind of our partners for this event, they use Schoology across their middle and high school. So it was really key for them to sort of really get someone in who could explore those little moments where like, oh, well, that's going to save me so much time.
Yes, I have so many teachers that will contact me and say, am I doing something wrong? There has got to be a better way of doing this. Like I'm doing it. It's so many steps. It's all of these things. And I'll say, oh, have you thought about trying it this way? And they're like, oh my gosh, this totally changes everything. So I'm hoping that there'll be a lot to take away that you can use right away, right after the session.
And that's what we always like, a session where you can take it straight back into your classroom as well as having that longer look. Awesome. So anyone, I mean, whether you're using Schoology or something that you're considering having a look at, then at least obviously delivering that session on the 6th of March. And we really hope that a few people will get a bit inspired to come along to that one. However, there's more, of course. So one of your other sessions happening straight after that one actually is asynchronous tools that feel synchronous. I think those are two bits of terminology we've all become more familiar with over the last few months. But I just want to talk a little bit about the aim of this particular session.
So this is one of my favorite sessions to lead, because one thing that we learned right away back in the spring was that learning is a social activity, and we, as teachers, really pride ourselves on creating community within our classrooms. And I think that we all discovered that it's really hard to do that in an asynchronous environment to help students feel like they're a part of a learning community. On the other hand, when you have, all of your students on a video call, that's synchronous, but it's really hard to create community that way too. So I've put together this session of tools that are asynchronous, but I give examples of how to use them in a way that gives you that feeling like there is a community and a feeling like you are a little bit more in sync with each other. And so, again, it's looking for ways to reach our most struggling students. And oftentimes we rely on those relationships. We rely on that sense of community to help those students. So this is a really fun session. And I think that, you will probably see some tools that you are familiar with, but maybe haven't thought of using them quite in this way. And this has been really successful with the schools that I work with here. And I hear from so many teachers that are giving great feedback about, oh, I use this tool in this way, and I really do feel more connected to my students. They feel connected to one another. So this is a really fun one.
Awesome. And I mentioned Najib earlier, and he's already referenced that he's quite excited about the Schoology session, as well as this one as well. So Najib, welcome. If you're having a look, and hopefully the rest of your staff will feel similar as well. And it wouldn't be a live stream without a contribution from Abid as well. Just giving a shout out to the London 19 educators. Hey, Abid.
Hey, Abid.
Awesome, tremendous. Okay, so I think I've heard of schools sticking to their timetable for distance learning and being on a video call at 9 a.m. and all the way through till 3. Sounds tough. Equally, we've worked with schools that are very much more open, and I feel like this session is a lovely way of balancing that out, and we'll give you some ways that it doesn't always have to be, and there's some ways that you can have that engagement as well. So really looking forward to this one, and I think it's so timely around what's going on and what teachers are experiencing at the moment. So last but certainly not least, and coming back to what we talked about right at the start, is your session about making learning accessible for all students, which, not that you're not a fan of Schoology and asynchronous tools, but this is where your passion really comes out, right?
This is close to my heart. But listen, this is, when you think about things like audiobooks, for example, audiobooks were created for people with visual disabilities, visual impairments, and yet we all benefit from audiobooks. I love to listen to an audiobook when I'm out for a run. I have one of my own sons who really prefers listening to an audiobook rather than reading a print-based book. So this is a session where, whether or not you have students with diagnosed disabilities is kind of irrelevant. This is about learning about and understanding some great accessibility tools that can be used by anyone. And it's really about empowering students and empowering learners so that they have options. Because especially right now, where so much is out of our control, and even, especially for our children, so much feels out of control, there are some things that we can say, no, you actually can access these tools. You can decide to use some of these tools for various reasons. We have kids who are looking at screens a lot. And so some of these tools can really help with that as well. I know, I reference my own kids a lot. I have 2 teenage boys and they're very different. But I have one of them who at the end of the day, he'll say he's been looking at a screen all day. The last thing he wants to do is look at a screen some more to do homework or to, read a book on a device. So we're going to do, a really nice kind of thorough look at many accessibility tools, Chrome extensions. There are things that are built in. And sometimes when I show these to kids, they just kind of perk up because it's different. It's something new. So, you may not necessarily have a student who needs an extra large cursor on their screen, for example. But for some kids, it's like, that's exciting. So a lot of these accessibility tools, we're really seeing great uses from kids right now because it just helps them feel like they have some control. They can put some things in place that can help them when they're struggling for whatever reason.
There's some great examples from the gaming industry where the gaming industry's become much better at baking in accessibility tools into its games. And what they're seeing is that rather than the 4 or 5%, which in theory should be turning on these features because they have a diagnosis and it's like a particular issue, it's 20, 30, 40% are turning on these accessibility features. And I heard someone talking about it, it's like, sometimes it's a Sunday morning and I'm not in like my win at all cost gaming mode. I'm in my relaxed Sunday morning gaming mode. So yeah, I'm going to put up the captions. I'm going to sort of slow things down a little bit or whatever it is. And it just gives them adaptability. So that choice and like putting all of that choice in the learner's hands, say, well, if captions help, turn them on. If voice typing is going to be the best way to express your learning, then finding those. So I think it's been really interesting to make sure all the teachers are aware of the little things that they can be passing on to students to say, hey, here are options. Let's create a nice and comfortable environment.
That's a great example. And more industries are really being forced to kind of look in that direction. And they're finding the same thing, that it's much greater percentages of people than what you would imagine are actually accessing these tools. So, right, it's nice to be able to say to students, hey, if here are some things that you can try, and if they help you, then great, go for it. I think another misunderstanding is teachers often feel like they have to be experts in knowing how to use all of these tools in order to help students, and you really don't. So I'm going to show you how to, approach this with your students in the way that you don't have to be the absolute expert. You can just be the one who introduces the students to these tools, and then kind of show them how to take it from there.
Yeah, sometimes it's just saying to the student, yeah, there's a way you can deal with that. And there is a danger of trying to keep up with everything at the moment and feeling a little bit overawed by all the different tools and options, and just, finding, as long as you know that what's possible, I think that's kind of key. Awesome. 3 really interesting sessions, and I know ASL are looking forward to it, and also hopefully we've got a few more people that have been inspired to come along and learn. So just a massive thank you, Lisa. We've got some more speakers to get to. I think the passion is clear, but I know you've got a busy day back in Illinois to get on with. So just huge thank you from us, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you all in March. I hope you'll join me. It's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of great stuff for you to be able to take away and use right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. So next up, really excited to introduce Susan. Hey, Susan.
Not muted anymore.
It's the theme. So joining us from California right now. So still sort of relatively early in the morning. Well, I've been on calls with you earlier. That's but yeah, so if I just pass over, do you want to give a bit of background about your own career and what brings us here, and then we'll switch into your sessions in a moment. But I'm really excited to have you along. Thank you, Susan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology teacher on special assignment. Say that 5 times fast. I'm a technology coach from Central California. I've been in this role for 7 years, and before that, I spent 14 years teaching kindergarten and 2nd grade. So I come from the land of sunshine and rainbows. I am a kindergarten teacher. I'm also a Google certified innovator and trainer, and little known fact, I actually did my academy in London as well. I was part of the London 17 cohort. So I'm excited to be here, a part of this. You know, that experience, being a part of that London cohort, was tremendous for me because that international audience, I sat at a table with 36 educators from 13 different countries, and we had really amazing conversations about education and changing the world, and realizing that if you're going to change the world, you have to consider the needs of the whole world, right? So my heart, like, that experience in London was tremendous. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this group presenting for the American School of London. And
and obviously in a different time, in a different place, it would have been the opportunity to come back over, but we are remaining remote for the moment. And you touched on it there in your introduction, that speciality around kindergarten through to grade 2. So I'll pop us up so we can see one of your first sessions. So my background is maths secondary, high school, and I ended up doing training across primary schools as well, elementary schools. And from time to time, I remember sitting in sessions or leading sessions where you could see the teachers from kindergarten through to grade 2, the reception teachers over here in the UK, just feeling like, is there going to be a bit for us? And while there are always bits that people can take, I think that experience with the youngest learners is different. And they're not going to be logging on to Google Classroom immediately. There's different ways of using the tools. So really excited to have you along, because your sessions are very much focused on the littlest of our learners, and really how you can use G Suite tools to really work with them. And obviously that is your background. So it's really exciting for us to be able to offer very specific sessions for those kindergarten through to grade 2 teachers who sometimes maybe just have to pick out morsels from other sessions. So yeah, if I pass over, you want to talk, we've got a couple of sessions to talk about, and I'll let you start off with your Google Docs for little learners.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was first attending professional development in the area of technology, I did find myself in those sessions going, this is interesting, but what can my 5-year-olds do with this? Or, yeah, I like this idea, but what about classroom management? What about fine motor development? What about social emotional development? Those are all those very unique considerations that come along with teaching young children. It's true. Pick and choose was hard. So when I started sharing some of the things that we were doing in our schools, even in the early years, it was tremendous. And teachers, kindergarten, first grade, grade 2 teachers, were so excited to have a session just for them. I'm sure, Ben, in your experiences as a secondary math teacher as well, you have some unique considerations there. So sometimes when you're attending professional development, yeah, you can glean out those little nuggets of goodness, but gosh, isn't it nice when you get a session that's just about maths, right? For us, when we can have those sessions that are specifically designed to meet the needs of our learners, it's really, really wonderful. So I'm excited to come and share a couple of sessions specifically designed for young learners. Those of us who teach young learners. The first one's going to be Google Docs, right? We know Google Docs is a place where our students might type some things, right? It's text in a page. A lot of times Google Docs is seen as that place where they draft out their essays or they write their stories. And in our session, we're going to explore some ways that we can set some foundations for that. Because I know that those 5- and 6-year-old learners aren't, typing out 2-paragraph essays, right? So what can we do to train them for that? In the early years, we set foundations, right? We teach letters and sounds so students learn to read. We teach counting and cardinality so that later they can do all those crazy things with X and stuff down there. But in the early years of technology, what are some of those foundations we can set to get them familiar? So we're going to create Google Docs that teach kids how to get familiar with the keyboard, how to learn the shift key, how to just get their bearings through some tasks like letter identification, phonics, phonemic awareness, those kinds of activities, matching-based activities. So keeping that cognitive load low and appropriate for our young learners while still setting those early foundations and how to use those digital tools. We want them to create, we want them to share, and we've got to bring it down. What does that look like? So in Google Docs for learners, that's little learners, that's exactly what we'll do. We're going to bring it down to the level of the young learners and make sure that they are meaningfully creating and sharing using this tool.
Awesome. And I can testify to the sessions that you ran early or towards the end of 2020 with the American School of London sessions. It was just an eye-opener for me of the tools that I knew so well, but just being targeted and used with those younger learners. It was just, in a way, like all great ideas, it was like, oh, obviously, that's a great idea. So I think, for any... So in the UK, early years, foundation stage, the same key skills are being developed. So I think it's always a pleasure to sort of join the sessions. And I think I said to you before, having had the opportunity as a secondary teacher to go into early years settings and experience it, I'm always left thinking, why does this stop that kind of independent learning activities setup? It just seems to slowly go away until they're lining outside of my classroom and I'm putting them in a seating plan, as used to be the case in some of my schools. Yeah, just that's always my little question going around.
I recently read a book. It was called Lifelong Kindergarten, and it was actually written by a computer scientist out of MIT. And it was talking about how we could focus more on create, play, share, sing, dance, all the things we do in kindergarten. But, throughout our life, and how everything, when we're preparing students to be successful in their careers or just be successful in this fast changing world, those things, creating, sharing, collaborating, really should be our focus. But yeah, Lifelong Kindergarten, great book, really focusing on that very conversation.
And I think for any teachers teaching above the age range we're talking about now, I don't see any harm in them coming along and learning a lot from it as well. So that's the first one. We've got focus around Google Docs. And then a tool that's not used as much as some of the others, but can be very powerful, is Jamboard. And you've got a session dedicated to using Jamboard, part of the G Suite core tools, like a digital whiteboard with those younger learners as well. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Oh, Jamboard, right? If you're not using Jamboard yet, oh my word, let's get started, because Jamboard is for everyone. But in our schools, we needed a place where kids could write where teachers could write. Because as an early years teacher, you know that there's a huge difference between showing like a letter B, like the printed letter B on the screen, and then showing a letter B being printed, right? The letter formation down and around, showing that live motion. That's where we started with Jamboard, was just being able to have our learners watch us write. When we do our shared writing experiences, when we're trying to teach the basics of sentences and words and, you know, letter manipulation, all of that stuff, we need a space where we can interact and even better, have our students interact with us. So Jamboard is great because it is a giant whiteboard. Some people might see it as a very simple Google Doc or a very simple Google slide. Lightweight tools are easy to manipulate and move around. It's not as robust as, say, a slide, but for me with little learners, I like that there aren't too many buttons, right? It keeps it very, very watered down so my students can focus on what's important. And then once we start adding in images and text and annotation, so many great ways that we can have our students really, really interact with learning. Because we start with it as a teacher tool, right? To display, to show, but because it's part of the course suite, right? Because it works just like a Google Doc or a Google Slide, I can also hand my kids the pen, right? I can share that Google Jamboard with my learners so that they can interact with me. So what we'll do in the session is we'll look at ways we can teach phonics, phonemic awareness, counting, sorting, all of those things, teaching the one-to-one correspondence of math, all of the things that we want to do, all those foundations we want to set in a fun, colorful, interactive way using Jamboard. Again, part of the suite, some people think, what's a Jamboard? You know, that's a thing like a smart board or like that you have to buy. No, it's a tool in the Google Suite. So we'll take a look at some samples of what kids are doing and how teachers are using Jamboard, and then we'll make some Jamboards and we'll just have a whole lot of fun sharing the learning, getting our hands in there, trying out the tools and seeing what our littlest learners can do in Jamboard.
I'm really looking forward to it. And Najib, who attended a couple of your sessions back in November, sort of also realizes the value in those as well. I love that. Intentionally designed and easy. I thought that was really nice and does sum up the sessions that you've got on offer as well. Awesome, tremendous. So we've got other speakers to get onto. I think as much as we can, I'm really trying more and more to have some targeted sessions that do take into account the teachers that are working with the youngest learners. We're very fortunate to have you on board, Susan, and giving up your time to share that as well. So really looking forward to those sessions. And yeah, just thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me. And I'm really looking forward to the event. So I can't wait to see you in March and we'll have some great fun. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. Cool. Catch you in a bit. Okay. So yeah, those K-2 sessions are really interesting. So really, really excited about having those. So next up, we have Katy joining us. So you resisted the temptation to come in on mute.
I am not muted.
Awesome to have you along. So based in Virginia, though, yep, always have to specify, don't we? DC.
Yeah, just right outside DC, the Northern Virginia.
And a tech coach at high school. But I'll let you do the introduction. We've got a few sessions to talk about. So, but over to you. Do you want to sort of give a bit of background about what brought you here?
Sure. Yeah, I am a high school tech coach. So I'm at a high school of about 3,000 students in Prince William County, Virginia, right outside DC. I've been in the tech coach role for 4 years. And before that, I was a science teacher for 13 years. Teaching AP sciences, regular sciences, all over the map. And then in 2018, I became a Google Innovator, and I was fortunate enough to go to the cohort in Copenhagen, Denmark, where I got to collaborate with a colleague of Ben's, and then that's how I started working with Apps Events. And so I've been doing that for a while. And yeah, I really love coaching teachers. I'm a Google certified coach as well as trainer and innovator. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about podcasting and productivity in my sessions.
Yeah, and actually, good for mentioning the coach certification, a newer certification that Google's offering, which actually aligns with the role you're in every day, and quite an effective way of kind of supporting teachers through the use of technology, but your last year has been quite intense, right? As teachers have suddenly gone, Katy, I need your help now.
Yeah, and very popular.
I'm sure you were very popular
March
before, but
13th
extra popular.
March 13th of last year, my popularity soared. Suddenly I wasn't like my colleague, he likes to say that we were the sprinkles on the cupcake as tech coaches, but now we're kind of like the cupcake.
Yeah, the whole thing, container.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned podcasts already, so I'll bring in a bit of information about the first of your 2 sessions. So podcasts are the new essays. Over to you.
Yeah, great. So in this session, we are going to talk about getting your students to podcast. I am a firm believer in authentic assessment, in assessments where students are creating things. No one thinks back to their schooling experience when it's like, wow, that was a great test. I remember that test. But people do look back at their like educational experiences and remember the projects they did and the really fun activities they did. So podcasting is one option I think is a great creative presentation or creative project for students to do K through 12. It's gonna I'll talk about some scaffolds where you can do it with younger kids, all the way up to doing it more professionally and setting up a studio with older students. So it should be a great session, and podcasting is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think even obviously before it's a valid session, but I think particularly at the moment with teachers having to continually still deliver online in a lot of cases and looking for new and engaging ways to allow students to kind of engage that learning. I think this is a great session to put in front of teachers who are looking for that alternative way, if they've maybe kind of wanted to change things up as well. I think it's definitely awesome
something.
session.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that can be done easily remotely. So kids can still collaborate and create a podcast in a remote environment. So. Yeah,
and you've also got kind of that caveat between those below the age of 13 as well, and different options depending on the age and kind of security and privacy related stuff as well. So a true tech coach.
Yes. Yeah. We want to keep always our students' privacy if you're younger and not be publishing things out to the world while our older students may be ready for that.
Awesome. So that's going to be a great session on the 6th of March towards the afternoon, obviously, because it'll be relatively early for you. So thank you for giving up your Saturday morning for us.
Oh, I'm good. It's my partner that has to get out of bed as the bed's right behind me.
Look out for that. Yeah, I just roll off to one side of it.
Sorry, you're gonna have to
go. Yeah, I don't. I'm in a basement with no windows, so no one wants to be in here with me.
Yeah.
Cool. And your second session.
Yeah, it's COVID teaching right here. So.
This is where I've lived for a year now. I think I need to worry about my vitamin D levels and calcium and the rest. Second session. So second session is, this is so relevant. Work smarter, not harder. I worry that a lot of teachers have been, teachers worked hard anyway, but this year has been crazy. So I think this is really important session to have a look at. So yeah, what's the aim for the time that you've got the
teaching? We've all definitely had an interesting year. I know it probably wasn't until October that I stopped doing 12-hour days from this location in my bedroom. And there was a really hard demarcation between work and life and what was going on. So in this session, I hope to give you some tips using some of the core Google Suite for productivity, but also some other tools that I really love, and also some processes or techniques that you can apply to your time management or your project management. And also those are things that you can then use and relay to students when they're doing group projects. So some ways to manage group and collaboration and time, which I think is all really valuable to us right now. Here,
absolutely. Says the person who's asked you all to give up a bit more of your time to come along and do this. Absolutely. Cool. So those 2 sessions happening across the Saturday and Sunday are really relevant to what's going on right now. And obviously in your tech coach role, I think you do this work with these teachers day in, day out. So lots of experience to bring of being at the coalface. That wasn't a Virginia, sort of specific pun that I got in there, but at the coalface, I've been working with the teachers there. Awesome. Thank you so much, Katy. It's a pleasure to have you along, as always, and enjoy the rest of your day. If anyone's got any questions, pop them in the comments. I'm sure all of our speakers will be able to jump in and have a look. Actually, we'll also be chopping this up afterwards, so you can have the little sections to look at as well. So look out for that on the YouTube channel.
I can't wait to see my commercial. All right.
Yeah. What we have targeting. We're not advertising to you. I'll have to think about that one.
Bye.
Cool. Thank you, Katy. Okay. In between, like a whole family's worth of birthdays, amazingly, Kim has joined us. Are we before or after cake cutting?
Cake has been eaten. Presents have been opened. I was rushing them a little bit. Come on. Yes, I have two birthdays here in my house today. So
this is how passionate you are about the sessions that you do. Birthdays, no. I've got a live stream to get to. Well,
no, I'm wondering how I get to attend all these sessions because they all sound so good.
I know. I get to because I need to sit and make sure everything goes smoothly. So I get to learn a lot.
Lucky you.
And talking of learning lots, we have 3 sessions, all right, that you've got over the. No, wait. How many?
I have 5.
5. Wow. I better get out your way and let you start talking about them. So I think the first one we're going to talk about is Power Up with Pear Deck. So actually, I'm going to jump into the background and let you talk through them for a little bit, Kim, if that's all right.
Sure.
Cool.
Shall I introduce myself a little bit, or?
Yes, that would be a good idea.
I didn't know if you've done that already. So I am the ed tech specialist or tech coach at the Bavarian International School in Munich, Germany. And I've been in that role for quite a long time. And like you heard already, yes, I was also a sprinkles on the cake for a very long time, and distance learning has certainly raised my profile with the teachers. Even though I plan with them every week, it was always like, well, if we have time. But now it's very much become the central focus at the school, and it's been great. And I've seen teachers take up a lot of tools that I couldn't get them to even think about. Pear Deck is one of them. That has been so rewarding to see teachers dive in there and feel so good about the results, because it's easier than they think, and it's so versatile, and that's what I've really loved about it. So much you can do, and I think especially during a distance learning situation when it's so hard to have all that, the assessments and things piling up and the marking piling up. So this is something you can do on the fly, similar to what you can do live in a classroom, where when you're walking around, you're able to see what every kid can do. And so this is not only giving every student the opportunity to have a voice in the session, but for you as well to have that window into what they know and understand. So it's quick, easy, fast. And then after the fact, you can get back data and information and respond directly to those students. So we're going to go through lots of those tips and tricks for how to do those things, how to really get the most out of that program. And yeah, I work with primary school all the way through middle school. So that's sort of my age range that I mostly work with. But I've seen Pear Deck used even to teach grade 11 calculus. So it can be really, really powerful when you're tapping into all of the great features that it has available. So we'll have a look at how we can use it across different subjects, and also applying all of the different aspects of it as well to get the most out of it. Can you go to the next one, Ben? This is something I've been really, really excited about teachers taking up, that I've wanted them to do for a very long time as well. Hyperdocs and hyperslides. And a lot of times when you say that word or just have that in a description for a session, a lot of people don't sign up because they think it's going to be some kind of coding thing, or it just doesn't sound very inviting. But it's really harnessing the power of putting hyperlinks and things inside of documents and slides. And that might sound, oh, that's kind of boring. But actually what you can do is just develop whole lessons that can really take kids in a whole bunch of different directions, live in a classroom physically, or work really well in a distance learning environment as well. So you're offering some differentiation, some choice and voice through what you've pre-prepared, and leading students in different directions. And it's a great way to organize materials that you want to teach and different learning experiences, all within the house of either a Google slide deck or within a document. It works so well, and you can build on it as you go, so the students don't necessarily see all of it right away, so you can keep adding to it, and then have this really rich thing at the end that you can use again the next year and modify. But students in the meantime have had all these opportunities to take off in different directions, yet documenting it all in one place. So it's really, really powerful. So we're going to look at some examples of that. And from different age groups, different subjects, and then also have some time to kind of dig in and try some things as well. And I like to do sessions where it's not just me talking the whole time. So I like to have a little bit of time where we can do some work and feedback with some ideas and share as well.
Hello again.
Oh, hi, Ben.
Yeah. No, I just want to jump in on the session, like keeping the sessions active. I'm aware that I haven't modeled that with what we're doing right now, but I think getting the chance to get hands-on it's proved more challenging with remote sessions as opposed to when we're all in a room together. But I know all of the trainers have developed their practice over the year to sort of find the ways of doing that. And obviously this is something all teachers are grappling with as well. How do I make that kind of remote instruction and learning interesting? Which probably actually segues us quite nicely to getting started with project-based learning, because instruction is not the only option available.
Exactly. So this is something I've been really passionate about. And again, it seems like every session I've done is something on my wish list of things I wish every teacher would do. But this is definitely one of them. So these are not, like, I haven't hatched all of these ideas myself for sure. These are things based on a lot of research that I've done and reading that I've done and experimenting that I've done. I think it's a term that we've heard a lot. It's definitely been a buzzword over the past, 3, 4, 5 years. And I don't know how many people have actually dug in and tried it. And my finding with a lot of teachers is they think, oh, well, when I've finished with the content and I've done my assessment, then we'll do a project for fun. And I want to talk more about how this can actually be the assessment, how this can actually be the goal, the game that they're doing, rather than ticking off a bunch of boxes and having this be some kind of a reward. Like, this can actually be the learning. So I think that's really the focus of what this is. And again, this would be a session where I want to present and talk and share a bunch of different ideas from different teachers, but then also have some time in some breakout rooms to hash out some ideas, and also look at how this doesn't have to be at its highest level. Like, the diamond level is where it's across a whole bunch of subjects and a whole bunch of teachers working on one giant project. And that's great, but also not so manageable, and certainly not during this time. And I think at our school, for sure, our curriculum isn't completely lined up in a way that would make something like that successful. So whilst it's a goal to have out there, you can do this on a one teacher, one classroom basis with one subject, and really get kids digging a little bit deeper, and get something really rich out at the end of it, where they've really invested in it, and you can still get all that assessment data out. It's just figuring out what we really value in terms of what when kids can show what they know. So that's what I want to look at.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of the opportunity in the sessions to jump out into breakout rooms. So we will be using an Enterprise for Education Meet account for these sessions. So there will be that breakout rooms in Meet option as well. And just sort of a chance to experience that, if nothing else, as well.
Yeah, and so if you've shied away from it before and you thought, oh, that sounds really great, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. It's, success tips, things that other teachers have tried and said really works, but then also really thinking about taking it down to a smaller level. What could I do with this one unit that I have? How could I turn that around and make that into a project-based learning experience for the students, and be comfortable with then saying, okay, we're not going to do that test at the end. This is going to be it, right? So that's what I want to look at there.
Yeah, I think that's it's obviously something that people might adapt to during this time, but a long-term option for kind of, like you say, just small steps and then sort of growing out that approach.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, you mentioned that you are sort of elementary, middle school by trade. Oh, I've jumped ahead one, haven't I?
That's okay.
Hold that amazing segue for the next one. I'll let you talk about Get Formative, and then we'll talk about whatever the next session may be in a moment.
There are so many tools out there that can really help you with those formative assessment pieces. I think we've all figured out during distance learning, as I've watched our primary teachers are on Seesaw. So I've really watched, at the end of the day, they have this pile of things to go through. And I'm having all these conversations with them about how can we streamline this a little bit so that you're getting more bang for your buck, basically. You're getting as much as you can out of the activities that you're doing, and getting some of that data back. So there's a lot of tools that we can use to get that data. And I know John's doing a session. I think one of our other presenters is doing a session with not the same tools, but some similar ideas, I think, just in terms of what can I do in a session, in a lesson? And this is live or virtually, but it actually really benefits us during distance learning. To be able to get data out and know what your students know and be able to then target your teaching for the next lesson based on what you found out. And it's instant formative feedback there for you and then also for the students. So ways to streamline that whole process so you're not stuck at the end of the week with a pile of marking to do.
And it's definitely, that formative feedback bit is definitely been a challenge through the last sort of, well, we're almost getting up to 12 months, aren't we? 10 months. So any tools to support with that, I think doing now would be great. But I think it also will probably open people's eyes up to what they can take back into normal classrooms as things start to sort of hopefully move forward as we go.
And the tools I'm sharing are they're free tools or they're freemium tools. So there's definitely a free level that offers loads, and then there's additional levels if that's a direction that you want to talk to your school about going in.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I think we are one more to go, which is where I was trying to make that really bad segue into like elementary, because I know that the American School in London is using Seesaw for the elementary school, and that's something specifically you've been talking to them about. But I'll leave it to you to talk about your Seesaw session.
Yeah, I've had our schools, but this is our 4th year with Seesaw. So we've got a lot of learning under our belts. And for the first time this year, we set a goal to really look at what evidence-based reporting looks like. And if we want that as our goal, what does that mean? How can Seesaw help us to do that? So this is the first time that we didn't turn out a mid-year report card to the families. We actually walked them through the work that the kids have done on Seesaw as evidence-based reporting. So not only to that end, but also, like I've said in the description, how do I move this from sort of a scrapbook of stuff kids have done into something that's a really engaging portfolio showing growth over time and students' development and really documenting their learning, and that it has so many tools available there for us. It's just a matter of the way that we use it and the way that we create those activities for the students to do, how we're feeding back on it. And then also looking at the various ways and things we can put into Seesaw that aren't necessarily native to Seesaw, but that we can put the learning in from other things as well. So connecting it up with other apps, connecting it up with Google, some workflow things there that can make that a lot smoother for teachers to really get this powerful documentation of learning at the end of it.
Yeah, I think everyone that I know using Seesaw finds it really, really, really useful in their process. So, and I know that schools just getting started, I think it'd be a great session for them to understand kind of that experience you've got with it as well. So I think just a great selection of sessions, Kim, and we are certainly working you hard for the 6th and 7th of March. So it is greatly appreciated for your time. Now, without further ado, I'm going to let you get back to celebrating a couple of family birthdays.
Thank you.
And just give you a massive thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Hopefully see you in person one day. Who knows?
I know.
Oh, such
All
a
right.
thing.
Thanks.
Cheers, Kim. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, great. So loads of sessions from Kim. We are now into, I mean, the argument in the background has been who's the headliner here. But I have next up is John Neal. Hey, John, how you doing?
Hi, Ben. Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain. John and I have been working in sessions for a long time together, like 2014, I think. Touche. And yeah, I'm pleased to see. I understand you had a little bit of a hot coffee.
Yeah, I
was worried.
So I've got a new coffee cup, and rule number one, if you have a new coffee cup, is to try and figure out how you actually work the lid before you pour boiling hot water into your black coffee. So I do have a rather sort of nice red handlebar effect on my. So yeah, apologies. That's not part of the session, by the way. That isn't part of the session, unfortunately, but I'll do my best to bring it in.
I'm just pleased to see you okay, because amongst all other. And then I can ask all the other questions about like how that happened. Yeah. Anyway, that aside though, we have a couple of sessions that you are running for us, I believe. So without further ado, should we start with level up your feedback?
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so the first session I'm going to be taking is about leveling up your feedback. We all know that feedback is unbelievably important. Need to make sure that it's valuable, that it's purposeful for students when they're reading it, but also that it doesn't take too much time for teachers to hit that kind of perfect amount with the right amount of detail. It sounds like it's an impossible task, but what I'm going to be doing is sharing some tips in this session that will really help you to achieve all of those goals. The first of which that we're going to look at just super quickly is those that are available to us within Google and Google Classroom, so things like comments, comment bank, and rubrics. And then we're going to be skipping on to a new powerhouse of a tool called Mote. It's a young tool that is transforming feedback with voice notes and saving time with personalized comments across Google. Integrates very nicely into Docs, Sheets, and more. I am, by the way, joining the team at Mote in the middle of February, just as a bit of a caveat to that comment. But yeah, so really excited about that. And then we're going to be exploring some whiteboard tools. So hearing about Jamboards being covered in one of the other sessions, but I found that in my own classroom to be a super easy tool to see students work live and then be able to jump in and to be sharing useful feedback with them. And one or two tools that are possibly new, so Whiteboard Chat, Whiteboard Fi, and if there's time at the end, sharing some tips from my own classroom about how I've used various tools to actually to automate the feedback workflows. So Google's own forms, but also touching upon Nearpod.
Yeah, and actually, just before we go on to your next session, you've touched on two things there in your own classroom. So you've been teaching most recently in international school in London.
That's right. Yeah. So I've been the digital lead at Halcyon, which is a school in London, been there for 4.5 years. And before that, I was a teacher at a school in here in Southampton. So overall, been a classroom teacher for 15 or so years. And then, as I say, I'm transitioning into a new role in February. Very excited about that.
And in turn, I mean, everyone else has got their innovator cohort in there. I was a Google certified innovator in 2014, and I was inspired by no less than yourself, Mr. Trussell, and what one or two other legends of the Google world. So thank you again for that, Ben. Thank you. I wasn't angling for that. So
well,
thank you. A little bit.
That's not what a private chat would evidence, but yeah.
It's been a lot of London related ones because Susan was London 17, and we've got a few other Scandinavian innovator cohorts represented as well.
I tend to give more value if it was pre 2015, to be honest, but you know,
before it was called innovator. Cool. And then your second session, which is I'd say a little bit of you're known for this particular area. So I would say is in my role as a PE teacher, one of the first kind of ed tech tools I explored, believe it or not,
was the use of AR. So AR being short for augmented reality. And what I struggled with in the PE class was not everyone shared my passion for physical activities. I was trying to find a way to engage everyone. And the way that I did that was that I used AR to basically transform worksheets and to make them come to life with videos and one or two other things. And that kind of snowballed into trying to explore other ways that I could support colleagues with the use of. Then it was AR, and so in the more recent years, I've moved into looking at VR as well. And I just think that they really bring another dimension to what's possible in the classroom. And certainly, they've been a real asset, particularly in the last 12 months, as we've as the possibilities to explore outside our own space have been somewhat limited. So having a grip of the power of VR and being able to create spaces to explore has been really, really powerful for myself, colleagues, and for students. And
one of the things about the session that I really like is there's no necessity to have a pair of goggles or fancy kit in any of the things you've shown. And I think there's some great examples. I strongly suggest following John on Twitter for a number of reasons. But I know you've shared a lot of really good examples of how you've got the kids engaged in your design classes and other classes.
Yeah, precisely. And I can actually, and I can see on that list actually that unfortunately, tour creator or tour creator, as is on the slide there, is actually being retired in June. So we will touch upon that super briefly, but actually I've come across a tool really recently which is called Frame VR, and I'm really excited to be able to share that with the delegates that attend in March.
Yeah, good. I've changed that on the slide already. We can switch that one over. Awesome and tremendous. There's excitement happening in my household right now.
I can hear it. I'm wondering what's going on.
I think just any moment of the day that doesn't involve us getting them to do their schoolwork is just an exciting time.
Fabulous.
Cool. Thank you, John. It's a real pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure.
This time of day is always a busy one in the household, so I really appreciate it. And we look forward to working with you in March. And yeah, any questions for John, just get in touch with us and we can pass them on about those exciting sessions as well. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Cheers, Ben. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've been on a live stream with this presenter. So let's bring him in and say hi to Lawrence, there we go.
No,
hey, Lawrence,
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Really, really good. Yeah. So to finish off the whole thing, we've got one session from yourself. But before we get into that, do you want to do a brief introduction to kind of your background and your credentials?
Yeah. So my credentials are my background is that I was a computing teacher for 10 years in a secondary school in Bermondsey, which is London. I taught computer science. Then I went on to lead ICT across the curriculum, and I was responsible for introducing G Suite to my school. And then after that, I went on to be a certified Google trainer and also an innovator, but I didn't do it in London. I went to Sweden, thought I'd make a change, a bit different.
Very nice.
It was very
nice.
nice
Location.
It was. And since then, I've been involved in various projects over the last couple of years that keep me busy.
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked increasingly together over the last few years. And I mean, not least a few exciting projects on the horizon as well. But without further ado, let's get to your session. So if I bring in our slides, we've got hybrid learning. So we've obviously talked about various different tools in all the other sessions. And this one is kicking off the beginning of the event, talking about hybrid learning in general. So yeah, over to you. Kind of what's the overview of what people will get from the session?
So with hybrid learning, when we do eventually get back to school, is kind of looking at both ways in terms of in-person teaching and also remote teaching, because there still is potentially where students are going to be missing your lessons maybe because of COVID, but also beyond that, because we've actually moved into a new realm where actually students can still access some of the resources or learnings that is going on in the classroom if they did miss school. So what we tend to do here is we tend to try and bring all the different tools together to try and help you with your pain points in terms of teaching remotely and some of the tools that we can pull on to work with. So we look at it from obviously a teacher's point of view, but the other stakeholders that are involved, such as parents as well, and obviously the students. So it's about bringing that all together. And then coming towards the end of the session is the pain points we identified at the beginning. Can we use some of the tools to not have them as pain points anymore, to have them as actually, we've got this, so it's a session about actually you coming with a problem or us identifying a problem together and thinking about what tools do we have at our disposal to actually negate them. And we'll also be looking at some third-party tools as well.
Yeah, with this, you phrase it nicely. I think the session, that chance to obviously look at the tools, but also kind of identify some of the challenges and explore how we can go about solving them. And also, I think there's a chance to kind of look at hybrid learning as a whole with G Suite, and then fire off into the other sessions from this one into sort of more specifically, is it then looking at Jamboard or Docs, the AR and VA tools, Seesaw, Pear Deck, and all these other tools that you might be able to use. So I think it's a tremendous springboard for the weekend sessions. Definitely. Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and we won't call it headlining at all. And it's just an absolute pleasure. Really looking forward to the summit, and obviously with yourself and the other speakers, I think we've got a really good lineup. So it'll be exciting to share with the teachers from American School of London, and hopefully out of this we'll have a number of you who might be able to sign up and join us as well for a little bit of early spring professional development. So we look forward to seeing you. Please reach out to me, ben@appsevents.com, if you've got any questions whatsoever as we build the session. If you've got any questions about the session lineup, but don't forget, just head to appsevents.com/London 2021, and you can get all the information you need about the schedule, the timings, and the information about signing up to join us for this virtual summit. So where it's called the London Summit, as I said at the beginning, because originally it was going to be an in-person thing in London, but we've adapted, and like everyone, we're going to be doing it virtual for the moment. So we look forward to working with you then. Cool. So thank you, Lawrence. I'll catch you very soon, I'm sure. And just to sort of wrap up for today, a lot of what we do is only possible thanks to our sponsors. So ASA are our sponsors for this particular event and many others. So I'll just leave you with a bit of information from our kind sponsors.